Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to all of our witnesses for being here today, for your testimony. I think it's been really helpful, and obviously this is an important issue that we on our committee are very focused on. I'm going to pick up on a couple of the things some of my colleagues have already talked about this morning, but I think it's clear to all of us that the recent explosion of growth in AI has the U.S. poised to be the leader in this new emerging industry. And we have seen, as we were just discussing, a surge in interest in developing new data centers to support investment demands from the market that will drive economic development. Certainly, we're seeing them in my home state of Texas, as we are across the country. But these data centers do provide or create really new challenges, and that's a real tension where I live as we're trying to meet increased demand. They're trying to pull the power, and there's a concern about this increased demand. At the same time, we are experiencing tremendous stress and capacity issues on our grid, and that's something that everybody is talking about at home. I know that we talked earlier about some of the statistics that the Electric Power Research Institute expects the data centers to be as high as 9% of electricity demand by 2030, and that these AI queries are expected to take a lot more, maybe 10 times the electricity of a traditional Google search. So as we think about all of that, even though this fast-paced growth is exciting, it's going to exacerbate the existing issues that we already have, that we are already struggling to address in my home state and elsewhere in the country, of course. So one of the things I know Mr. Weber talked about, I know Mr. Peters talked about, I'm going to pick up on that theme a little bit because one of the things we talk about in here a lot is permitting reform and the need for permitting reform. And we know that today it can take on average 10 years to get, to site, get the permits, do the construction, and that's setting aside other slowdowns in the process just to build new transmission lines. And I think one of the challenges that we have is that Congress really needs to move forward on permitting reform. And so in the time I do have left, Mr. Dan, I want to address first a couple of questions to you, because in your testimony, you talked about how the deployment of domestic energy infrastructure to meet growing energy needs is hampered by the existing permitting process. I think that is certainly true. Do you think that we can add adequate generation to meet the expected demand growth over the next decade under the current permitting process?
So thank you, Congressman, for the question. I think the question is twofold. One, the demand predictions that we have, how accurate are they, and how dire are they? As I said in my testimony, I think the trend line is clear, that it's going to be more probably than less, and that the cost of underbuilding will probably outweigh the cost of overbuilding. So I think, first and foremost, that the need is there. The issue that you bring up is the permitting timelines that we talked about. So we know that we have certain rules, we know that we need to make certain transitions, and we know we need to do that in a decade, and we know that these processes take a decade or longer. That's the problem, right? Mm-hmm. So we definitely need your help. We can meet the goals, we can build, the infrastructure can be built in a couple of years, and it can be built much more cost effectively, right? The delays are not just delays and things aren't getting done. The delays are also cost delays, both the carrying cost, but also the cost of doing business. We know that prices usually over the course of a decade will go up. And that, again, does pass on to our consumers. So, again, we do have the time, but we do need more certainty, especially in and around the ability for repeated litigation rounds and, if you will, second bites at the apple. Okay. More certainty, more clarity around that will help reduce that timeline, and we can get it done.
Thanks. I want to take the time I have left to move on to Dr. Lott, my fellow Texan, native Texan here. You testified about the need for Congress to consider demand response and other non-wires solutions. And I was just wondering, I've only got about 20 seconds, but can you talk a little bit more or supplement for the record, because I'm going to run out of time, exactly what these are and how these technologies can help optimize performance and manage peak demand to drive down costs? I think that's a really critical issue for us.
Submit for the record, quick answer is it helps us with peak. It helps us to better utilize our assets by being more flexible. But I'll provide more details.
Thank you so much. I yield back.